since noon today. It's 11 o'clock UK time today. 5,000 injured. And he was warning of a death toll beyond imagination in the days to come.
He's been warning of that since the beginning. We should give no credence to those views. The possibility does exist of some sort of urban insurgency developing if there are Gaddafi forces that have not yet received the message of collapse, that are still holding out. We may yet see attacks like this taking place. We may see severe casualties. So far, I think events have progressed beyond the wildest dreams of those who were a few days ago sitting 30 miles from Tripoli in Zawiya, who thought they would have to slog through.
Let's just listen in. We've got the Libyan state television. Colonel Gaddafi is speaking. We can't translate it at this stage, but let's listen in.
وتدمر المبانينا وعماراتنا اللي بنيناها بالعرق وبالجهد. مدن التي بنيناها بالعرق وبالجهد وطرابلس الجميله بيحولوها بكره الى دخاخين والى رماد، بالاضافه الى قصف الناتو لها، يزيدوا هم يخربوها من تحت. اخرجوا يا ائمه المساجد، قودوا الجماهير للجنه وللنصر. اخرجوا الان، اخرجوا يا ائمه المساجد يا خطباء المساجد الانقياء صافيين اللي تعرفوا الدين مضبوط.
Just to say, some of the details coming through on translation. He's repeating calls for Libyans to save Tripoli. He's also said that Libya is now like Baghdad and being destroyed. Seems to have stopped now, but those were the key points that we got through, calling for Libyans to save Tripoli and saying that Tripoli was now like Baghdad and was being destroyed. I mean, this sort of rhetoric,
Apparently at the Rixos, the hotel you were mentioning, apparently nearly all the government minders have now just melted away. They're not with the journalists that they're supposed to be looking after. Just a few of them have stayed behind. I mean, I think they know the game is up. It does appear to be a rapid disintegration from inside. It's what we always said, that the caveat was it would take the rebels a long time, months, 6 months or a year. But if it collapsed from the inside, that would be it. And this is it.
It does beg the question, though, doesn't it, as to what happens now, how that news, if you like, that sort of confirmation that the regime has gone, has fallen, has crumbled, is now acted on. I mean, it's going to be in the cold light of day, isn't it?
It is, We have, so we're just hearing that Gaddafi is calling on people inside and outside of Tripoli to take up arms and defend the city. He says it's a matter of life or death. Well, it certainly is, but it's probably a matter of his life or death. It's more or less over. There are going to be people who will defend him. There is going to be some more fighting to be done, but the inevitable has happened. Very briefly on your last point, Stephen, there are three factions now. There are the faction of the Nafusa Mountains who came down from the mountains and took the cities and have reached there first. There are the people who have broken out of Misrata. And then there are the people right over there on the east in Benghazi, where the NTC sits, where the original uprising began. And now we're going to find out in the next few weeks just how much of a cohesive unit those three elements are.
Because that's there's so much focus on Tripoli, and not surprisingly, with it being, you know, the Gaddafi stronghold, if you like, the centre of power. But it's such a vast country, and it was split pretty much sort of down the line, east and west. It's going to be difficult, isn't it, to assess quite how cohesive the rebel support is going to be, again, in the cold light of day.
It is, and the NTC, remember, is based in Benghazi, almost 1,000 miles away. They will be saying that they represent the people of Libya now. Inevitably, the people who have come in from the other side, from the Nafusa Mountains, will say, well, hang on, don't think you can tell us what to do. We're the ones that are in the city. It can be worked out. It's an oil-rich country, and the riches of that country are there now for the entire people, if they divide it up properly and if they divide the power up properly once we get through the next few days, possibly next few days of fighting. But this is going to be a massive test for them. By the way, I just got a different translation. Gaddafi calling on people to Tripoli to purge the capital. Well, if you're going to purge something, it means it's inside. Gaddafi admitting what we all know, that it's inside.
Just briefly, Tim, what do you think the international community is going to be making of this? Well, obviously, they're going to welcome the removal of Gaddafi in any way, shape or form, but there's got to be a question now, hasn't there, hanging over them as to whether they're going to, in some way, be involved in trying to bring some sort of structure to what comes next?
Oh, they have to be. This is a political triumph for President Sarkozy of France and Prime Minister Cameron of the United Kingdom. It may have taken a long time, but their policy appears to have paid off. Those two countries and Qatar and others are now going to be behind the NTC to try and make sure that this becomes a country which can be governed, does not break into different parts, that the tribes agree to break up the power between them, share it, and then govern for everybody. And that is a massive diplomatic challenge. The money will come from the Arabs, the political support will come from the European Union.
Tim, for now, thank you. These are the scenes, the latest pictures we have from very close to the centre of Tripoli. Fair to say that Tripoli has fallen to the rebels. The end of the Gaddafi regime, inevitable in the wake of this very swift move in the last 24 hours from Zawiya into Tripoli, despite the protestations of Musa Ibrahim. More coming up in a couple of minutes.